All right, so we are doing the painless long division. So we're going to use the partial quotient method. So the first thing we need to do is draw the line down. So we're going to underline this number. How many times does 2 go into 7? We know that 2 times 3 equals 6, so we're going to put our 3 on the side. 2 times 3 is 6. Add a 0 here. Add a 0 here. Then we're going to subtract. 4 minus 0 is 4. 7 minus 6 is 1. Next thing we need to look is see how many times can 2 go into 14. I know that 2 times 7 equals 14, so I'm going to put my 7 on the side. 2 times 7 is 14 and subtract. I get 0, so I do not have a remainder. My answer here is on the side. 30 plus 7 is 37. We're moving on to the next one. I see, here we go. I'm going to make the long line down and underlining the first number. How many times can 4 go into 6? I know that 4 times 1 is 4. 4 times 2 is 8, so that's too many. So I'm going to put my 1 over here. 4 times 1 is 4. Add a 0. Add a 0. Next step is to subtract. 4 minus 0 is 4. 6 minus 4 is 2. Next thing I need to look at, underline. I know that 4 can't go into 2, so I'm going to underline 24. 4 times what can give me 24 without going over? I know that 4 times 6 is 24, so I'm going to put my 6 over here. 4 times 6 is 24, and subtract, and I get 0. My answer is here on the side. 10 plus 6 is 16. All right, and we are moving on down to the problem over here that says O in the corner. Draw your long line down and underline that first number. First question we want to ask ourselves, how many times can 3 go into 5? We know that 3 times 1 equals 3, so we're going to put our 1 over here. 3 times 1 equals 3. Add the 0, add the 0. Subtract. 1 minus 0 is 1. 5 minus 3 is 2. Then we need to see how many times can 3 go into 21. I know that 3 times 7 is 21, so I'm going to put my 7 on the side. 3 times 7 is 21. Subtract, and we get 0. My answer is here on the side. 10 plus 7 gives me 17. Moving on, same thing. I'm going to draw that line all the way down and underline the first number. 5 can go into 9 how many times? Once. 5 times 1 is 5. Put your 0, and subtract. 8 minus 0 is 8. And 9 minus 5 is 4. I'm going to underline the first number. 5 cannot go into 4, so I have to underline both of them. The next thing I'm going to look at, 5 times what can get me close to 48 without going over? I know that 5 times 9 can give me 45, so I'm going to put my 9 on the side. 5 times 9 is 45. Subtract, and I get 3. Now, since this number is smaller than the divisor, this is my remainder. So I'm going to circle it and put an R by it and move it up right away. So R3, remainder 3. And now I need to put the other part of my answer. 10 plus 9 more is 19. So my answer for this one is 19, remainder 3. Moving down to our next two problems. The first thing I'm going to do is draw my line down and underline the first number. 6 can go into 9 how many times? I know it can go in once, so I'm going to put my 1 over here. 6 times 1 is 6. add a 0, and subtract. 4 minus 0 is 4. 9 minus 6 is 3. Next, I want to look at how many times can 6 go into 34. I know that 6 times 6 is 36, but that's too much. So I'm going to go down to 6 times 5. 6 times 5 is 30. And subtract, and I get 4. This number right here is smaller than the divisor, so I know it's going to be my remainder. So I'm going to circle it and put an R by it and move it up top. R4, remainder 4. Next, I need to put this part up, the partial quotients, add them together. 10 plus 5 more is 15. So my final answer is 15, remainder 4. Moving on to our last problem here, I'm going to put my long line down and underline the first number. How many times can 7 go into 8? I know that 7 times 1 is 7, so I'm going to put my 1 on the side. 7 times 1 is 7. Draw your 0, draw your 0. Subtract. 5 minus 0 is 5. 8 minus 7 is 1. Then I want to see, can 7 go into 1? It cannot, so I need to underline the next number over. How many times can 7 go into 15? I know that 7 times 2 equals 14. So I'm going to put 2 on the side. 7 times 2 is 14. Subtract, and I get 1. This number right here is smaller than the divisor, so it is my remainder. Move the remainder up. And let's add our partial quotients together. 10 plus 2 equals 12. So my final answer here is 12, remainder 1.